Today I'm going to show you how you can add a collar to the Ava pattern. I'm going to show you the pattern modifications that you need to do that. We're going to need to add a curve and a particular neckline to the Ava in order to add the collar. Another video I did, I showed you how you could use a cup to round the neckline of Ava or of April in order to have a curved neckline. That is not going to work in this situation because we need a certain neckline to go along with our pattern pieces for our collar. So first thing, we're just going to start with the changes that you need to make with Ava, but the first thing that you need to do is trace a copy of all of these pattern pieces. Now you can use either view A or view B, but trace a copy of your bodice front, your bodice back lining, and your bodice back. You'll need to add your pattern markings as well. A very important pattern marking to be sure to have is this center back line on your back bodice. Once you have traced all of those, don't cut them out. Just leave them, in their form like this. This is traced but not cut out because we are going to draw some new curves up in here in the next step. So go ahead and get all three of those pieces traced, and then we'll talk about the next thing. So you have your Ava bodice pattern pieces all traced. Now let's talk about which pattern you're going to choose for the neckline. Really depends on which collar you want to use. If you want just a basic Peter Pan collar, there's lots of those out there with children's corner patterns. You can choose any of them and you can draw the neckline from the pattern that you choose onto the Ava. Now, what I'm going to do today is I am going to add a scalloped collar. So in order to use the scallop collar, there is a list of patterns that I can choose from. The scallops is an add-on pattern. It doesn't come with a bodice or anything. It just comes with the collar and sleeve cuff pieces. So in order to use this, you have to go to that pattern and see which patterns it works with, because contrary to what a lot of people think, not all of the collars are interchangeable with children's corner patterns. There are several that don't work with each other. So for scallops, you can use Victoria, Lee, Boys Basic, Molly, or Eleanor. So any of those patterns you could trace the neckline from and use the scallops collar. If you wanted to trace the Louise neck, that would not work with scallops, and it also doesn't work with Harper. But if you wanted to use the Harper collar or the Louise collar, you could. You would just have to use those bodices to trace, but you couldn't use scallops with that. I hope I haven't been too confusing with that little explanation. Anyway, so today I'm using the scallops collar and I'm going to use the Victoria pattern to trace my necklines. So go on and choose them, cut them out, get them out together with your traced pattern pieces, and we will start with the next thing. We're going to start with the bodice front. So get out your trace pattern piece and your other pattern piece. Your Victoria is what I've got. You can see that as these have been drafted, they're mirror image to each other, so that is not a problem. I'm just going to flip my Victoria over and I'll still be able to see everything, and I'm going to place my traced Ava right on top. And what I need to do is line up my center front, which is this fold line, and line up the shoulders. And as I do that, you will see what the difference in the necklines are. I will say that I happen to be using two sleeveless patterns, so my armhole actually matches up pretty well on this too, but that is not always going to be the case. If I were doing this with Lee or another pattern that wasn't sleeveless, you would have a difference in your armhole here. But for this one, it's pretty close. So you line up this center front and you line up your shoulders, and then you are just going to draw in this new curve up here. It's going to be a little bit extended in at the shoulder, and then it's going to be higher at the neck. So you can see here it's higher and here it goes in. And so this is going to be our new cut line for our neck for the front bodice piece. You can see how I have it lined up here. So got that one done. Now you can cut this piece out, with your new curve, and it will be ready to use as your pattern piece for your collared Ava. Next step is that we are going to do the same thing on our bodice back pieces. So get both of those pieces out And I'm gonna flip them sideways because it's a little bit easier for me to draw from that direction. But what you need to do, remember I had you mark your center back line on your Ava, and you have a center back line, which is right here marked on my Victoria. And I'm gonna put those right on top of each other. That's gonna be my mark for where it's gonna line up in the back here. And then of course I have to line it up again up at the shoulder, which I have not done yet. So let's get that lined up, and let's get our center back lined up as best as we can. And that's pretty good there. I'm gonna put this down on top of it for a minute to hold it in place. Okay, so let's talk about one other thing. Some of the patterns for Children's Corner have a wraparound facing in the back, and some of them don't. Victoria doesn't, but Ava does. So that is not a problem. You can see that my Victoria pattern ends right here. So when I'm tracing it, I am going to trace this entire curve, but I'm going to extend it all the way down so that my Ava has this complete curve here. So some of the patterns that you're tracing might be like Victoria and not have the round facing or the wraparound facing, but other patterns will. Like if you were wanting to use Lee, it has it. So doesn't really matter if it has it or not. Just be sure that you are extending your Ava pattern out so that it does have the wraparound facing. So we're doing the same thing. We've got our center back lined up. All these other lines over in here may not line up, but shoulder and center back, and you are just going to draw in that curve. And like I said, we're going to extend it down here. I'm going to use my little ruler here so I can make it a little straighter. All the way down to here. And then I'm going to get that connected. So this is my new curve. So now I'm ready to cut this one out. And I'm going to just cut my new curve all the way across there. And you're going to need this cutout pattern piece in the next section. So bring that with you as you come to the next thing, and we will do that then. Okay, now to the third piece that we need to alter. It's going to be the bodice back lining. You need the piece for the bodice back that you have just modified with your new neck. Get that out. It's cut out. And then we're going to get your trace copy of the bodice back lining, and we are going to line these up. The reason that we can't use our bodice back lining piece like we did the other two pieces is that it doesn't have a center back line. So what we're going to have to do is use our new bodice piece, bodice back piece that we've just done, and we are going to line up this angled neck on one to the other, and then we are going to draw this new curve in here. You will see that if you look under here, you can see that my center back line on my bodice back is over here, probably 1/4 of an inch to the side on this one. But what you're going to line up on this time is not any of the center back. You're lining up your shoulder and then your former line for your previous neck. And so after you've done that, then you can see through to draw the new curve onto this bodice back lining piece. Now your bodice back is going to be longer, and but your bodice back lining is short, so we are just going to do it just like this. It's going to go all the way up from its line in the back, line in the shoulders lined up, and then this is the new curve. So now you can cut this pattern piece out, and you will be all ready to go with your new bodice back lining. You'll have your new bodice back, and you've also got a new bodice front, and you'll be ready to construct your dress. Now you're all ready to go. Happy sewing.